everyone. Welcome to another edition of the Good Life Small Business Podcast. And I am really, really excited this week because we get a chance to sit down with 4 business owners who in the next few weeks are going to be opening their business. And so we get a chance to really hear the story of what it takes to get a business open and all of the things that come along before it. So I am happy to be joined by Amy, Michael, Dustin, and Lindsey, who are going to be opening in the next few weeks the Upper Room Brewery here in Kearney. So welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having us. Appreciate it. Thank you.
So let's get into it just to learn a little bit more about the 4 of you. What are some of the books that all or any of you are reading right now?
You guys go ahead on this one if you want.
I'm reading 100-Year-Old Man Who Climbed Out the Window and Disappeared because I like fiction and that's what I read.
Got it. Okay.
I'm currently making my way through brewing Belgian styles.
Nice.
Page 3.
Yeah,
Makes
sense.
It's a write-off.
Yeah, absolutely. You gotta have those.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah. I'm more of a podcast person.
Yeah.
Books, I'm a podcast person. And I don't know, anything that has to tie into leadership or business, and then obviously sports. So any kind of podcasts like that. Listen to the Dave Ramsey podcast quite a bit. Also listen to, my friends will make fun of me, but I'm a big NASCAR fan, so I'm a loyal Dale Jr. Download podcast listener.
Got it.
So that's really about it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nothing too interesting.
3 years ago I read A Girl on a Train.
Very good.
I can't really say much after that.
Netflix though, like TV shows,
we're on it.
We got those covered.
So when I sit down and actually read a book, I'm asleep in 10 minutes. And so the last year and a half is when I really got into audiobooks. I was the same way. Like, I haven't really read much, but I've been able to listen. Like if I'm going on a road trip or driving to Lincoln for work or whatever. So I'm the same way. Yeah, it wouldn't have been for audiobooks that it's probably been a while since I've read, but yeah, very cool. So let's go to podcasts. Any podcasts that you guys are listening to or that you could recommend for anyone who's listening?
I am not a podcast listener.
Okay.
I don't do that, so no.
Okay.
She has a short commute, so
Yeah.
I do.
Right.
it's not very feasible. I, on the other hand, am an avid podcast listener. Right now I've got probably 4 or 5 that I cycle throughout the week. So I'm listening to Tom Wood's podcast, the Theopolis Institute podcast. It's a theology podcast there.
Okay.
The survival podcast, really kind of got interested in that one when all the COVID stuff started back in March.
Sure. What's the name of that one?
The survival podcast.
Okay.
So it's kind of on prepping, but it's a lot more than just that, and not like the National Geographic style prepping. I mean, it's more
Right.
down to earth and what you can do in the moment. But even beyond that, just everyday kind of tips or tricks for.
To never run out of toilet paper.
Right.
It's a big deal.
Yeah.
It's very important.
It's a big deal.
Well, I just started listening to one called "Can You Survive This Podcast?" And it's so the guy interviews people that have been through. I think Steve Callahan was one of the interviews that he did, and he was out to sea for 76 days on a raft. And so it's a pretty interesting story. There was a book and anyway, so that's what I was asking. I kind of like those survival.
I definitely would not make it.
It'd be a short podcast.
Yeah, it would be very short. Very short. More like a commercial.
Then go through the comedian Dave Smith. He's got a podcast called Part of the Problem.
Okay.
So I've enjoyed that, and a lot of those are politically leaning libertarian type podcasts.
Okay.
So the Ron Paul Institute podcast. Got a keep old Ron up there as well. So
Right. Very cool.
It's kind of how I spend my days anyway, is listening to those guys.
Nice.
Much to the dismay of my wife. She doesn't have to listen to them, but she gets an earful when
We
she
have
drives
interesting
home.
conversations when I get home.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know, I'm gonna talk with Michael about what podcasts I can listen to, in addition to the ones that I can find on
Dale Jr. has some
ESPN.
very
and-
important things to say.
Right.
so
Yeah, I
I
mean,
don't.
now it's the off season for NASCAR, so there's not much to talk about, so,
Sure.
yeah. I'm on the market for new podcasts. Your podcast, I listen to it every
Oh.
episode, it's been great, yeah.
Good.
Yep,
Good.
it's been really cool.
Very cool.
Yeah, podcasts, I mean, I could plug a lot of Netflix shows, but
Yeah.
I promise I'm not like advertising for them.
Right.
But
Well, plug us
HBO, I mean, The Undoing, we just
Okay.
watched that, it's
Yeah.
very good.
Yeah.
The Queen's Gambit,
Oh, yeah.
very good,
Yeah.
yeah, so a couple new ones that we watched and got through this week, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we are in the market for other shows too.
Hey, well, maybe that should be a question, because you gotta have some downtime.
Yeah, what are you streaming?
Exactly. Absolutely. Cool. All right, so let's just get into it. I am very interested to hear about the story for the Upper Room, kind of how it came to be. So just kind of take us through the journey, vision to reality, and kind of what led you guys to this point.
Well, I guess the start of it was a couple of years ago. I've been a home brewer for 10 years now, and never really thought of going in this direction, but as I progressed in my home brewing and the toys got more expensive and bigger and stuff of that nature, I started toying with the idea of opening a little brew pub. I've enjoyed going to other people's breweries in Nebraska and kind of wherever we traveled, and just kind of caught the bug that I like that atmosphere of the brew pub, being able to brew on site and serve on site and have that community aspect as well. And I think one of the big draws for me was that community of breweries. I think it's an interesting industry in that there's competition, but it's like a friendly competition.
Sure.
Like everybody wants their competition to do well. I've heard it said many times going to the brewing conferences, rising tide lifts all ships. And so I truly feel that's right now the case within the brewing industry, that everybody's watching out for everyone else and willing to lend a hand or advice or ingredients, whatever the case may be, to help their fellow brewers and brew pubs. And so that was a major draw for me into the industry. And then, I just was home brewing, and I think what really solidified the decision to move into a business was actually last year, the Buffalo County Fair, my Belgian Golden Strong got Best in Show.
Nice.
And as kind of a reward for that, Thunderhead brewed a half batch of my beer. And so just being recognized, obviously as Best in Show, but then having a professional brewery take that recipe and brew it on a much larger scale was kind of the linchpin or the nail in the coffin for me. And just kind of started looking around Kearney for a place to house a brewery, and through a mutual friend of ours, we got connected, and it was, I guess, last November, Dustin and I had lunch at Cunningham's, and
What was that conversation like?
It was interesting. So it was the two of us, and then our and then our friend who said, hey, you guys should meet, because with Michael and his background in brewing, and then my background in business and marketing, and also we enjoy craft beer and breweries too. And when I guess we got connected with even the idea of being a part of owning a brewery, I mean, just that concept is like, yeah, that would be pretty cool. I don't know how to brew. I just taste.
Right.
I just taste the market. Yeah. Right. Yeah. And so. Yeah, it was just kind of like we just kind of I guess complimented each other's lack of knowledge in a certain area, and so together it was kind of a great partnership. Conversation was, I mean, we were there for probably an hour and a half or so, and just talking about vision and what do you think a brewery in Kearney should look like. About a year and a half ago, I graduated with my MBA at UNK, and for that, I created a business plan for a tap room and a concert hall. The concert hall was tied to a past career that I had here in Kearney. So I kind of had a lot of the business plan created for a brewery, for a tap room.
Sure.
And I guess just having the chance to talk about the financials and the marketing and hey, what do you think could work here in Kearney? It was good. I mean, after that, we didn't talk for probably a couple weeks or so, and then I'm not sure who texted who. He said, hey, I think you texted us and said, hey, do you want to come over? You guys come over for dinner and try the beers, because I haven't tried them at that time. And we tried a few that night, and they were all really, really good. I'm like, yeah, I think this could work.
Yeah. So after you two got done talking, and you had to go home to talk to your wives, how did that conversation go? Were you ladies, did you know that they were going to have this meeting, or how did that go?
Yeah, I mean, we knew they were gonna meet and discuss, and then, I don't know, it's different when, like, you don't know the people and you weren't a part of the meeting, and it's all third-hand information, and it's men who are relaying the third-hand information, so you're getting like a microcosm of what it was probably like. So it was like, he comes home and it's like, well, how'd it go? Really good. Good. So what does that mean? Like, what does that look like? And then, it's almost like this weird dating thing. Like, do you text him? Do you call? Like, how long do you wait?
You don't want to be too aggressive,
Yeah.
He's out there, yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, it was just, most of it is like, you have to trust your spouse and trust that they have a good feel of the situation and a good read on things. And then I think that was part of the reason we decided to invite everyone over, was just so we could all meet and kind of all get on the same page, and that went really well. So yeah, it was just kind of like getting the whole thing started, I feel like, was just these random series of events that like everything just really kind of fell in place. And I told Mike, I was like, if we're gonna do this, I feel like now's the time to do it. And if you don't do it now, you're gonna always regret not taking the chance. So we kind of just decided to jump in and give it a try, and that was that.
Here we are.
Yeah. And when was that, when you guys first met?
A little over a year ago.
About a year ago? Okay. Very cool. So I'd like to know, because I think it's good information for our listeners. I want to know what your guys' biggest challenge has been to this point, and what also your biggest victory has been to this point.
I know for me, the challenge is patience. It's been, I mean, we probably looked at some places, back in April, right when COVID hit, and we'll probably talk about that here in a minute, but like just having the idea about, okay, getting a space, having the build out, and then getting the equipment here and brewing and like just getting it going. It was hard to be patient, because when people would ask me, hey, when are you gonna open? I'm probably a little too ambitious, be like, oh, it'll be 2 months. But in actuality, it's like more like
July.
8 or 9. Yeah, I was like July. Even now, I'm still fighting for July. But for me, the biggest challenge was just being patient and not trying to overdo things.
Sure.
I think patience is a big one. I guess trust, not necessarily trust in Dustin and his abilities, but just trust in those around you, and that you're making a good decision
Sure.
in pursuing this endeavor, this dream, and so just trusting that gut that what you're doing is worthwhile and will be beneficial for you and the family and the community as well. But yeah, the patience thing too. I mean, we thought we had a place back in March or something like that, that we were pretty close to signing on, and then just decided that wasn't going to be the best fit for us, so we had to go back to the drawing board, and so just kind of that back and forth as well, and obviously the excitement of wanting to be open, but having to kind of rein things in and take a step back and make sure we have all our ducks in a row and stuff. And so people in the industry that I've talked to always have said, plan for things to take twice as long as you think and twice as expensive as you think. And I was like, oh no, we'll be fine. We're going to be the odd ones that defy that rule. But it's not panned out that way.
No, we're very much in the mold. Yeah.
So I guess I don't know, not really a victory, but the advice there rings true. And so don't discount those that have been in your shoes before you and what they say. So.
I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say. What's your biggest challenge?
I don't know, probably just anxiety about the unknown.
That's crazy.
I mean, there's so much else to say, but just, excitement to get up and going, but then anxiety about, well, how is this gonna go? And then carrying on also in the, jobs that we have, but also in the back of your mind, always thinking about it. So it's been anxiety in a good and bad way, I guess, there's good stress. So, I'm a nurse, so this whole year's just been kind of a mash of so many emotions. So, that's what I would say. Mostly anxiety and stress to the positive, but but we've always had good beer to drink, and so that's great. We'll take it.
This was maybe a little bit of a break for you, as far as from nursing to have this as something else that you're working on.
Definitely like a positive outlet. So
very cool. Before I hit record, we were just kind of talking, and I think that all those emotions that you guys just talked about, the anxiety, the good stress, patience, and especially what you guys have had to deal with trying to open a business in 2020, just adds to that. But, one of the reasons that I wanted to do this podcast at the very beginning was, and I told you guys, it doesn't matter what industry you're in. When you start a small business, all of those emotions, and sometimes you're dealing with all those emotions in a matter of an hour or a day, or it's just a roller coaster where excited, stressed, something doesn't go right, now you're getting pushed back another 2 months, want to open, and that opening day, when that gets pushed back, that can be a little bit defeating. And so, anyway, Again, anybody who started a small business, those emotions that you guys have, I think that's important, because I think that there's people out there that feel like they're on their own, they're alone, they're the only ones feeling those, but it doesn't matter what you do on those emotions, and they're good, they're stressful, but it's just something to be aware of. So I think it's cool how you guys can share that, and it's still really raw for you guys.
Yeah, because we're not open yet, and so there's still a lot of, I guess, hope out there, and we've tested the market, talked to a bunch of people, created a campaign Facebook page. We have we kind of feel that we have a pretty good following right now, and people care and they're asking questions, and so that builds it up. But like saying, hey, we're excited about your place, that's one thing, but actually coming here and then coming back,
Sure.
That's the whole other thing that we just haven't experienced yet.
Yeah.
Once that happens, I think people hopefully can taper down a little bit.
Yeah. So we're very thankful for the people that are following us on Facebook and that do ask questions when we run into them or coworkers or something like that. We're very pleased with that, but we want to deliver too. We don't want to
Sure.
keep stringing people along. I mean, that's never been our intention. It's just the way things have played out in 2020. But,
Sure.
we definitely want to deliver a good product to our customers, to our fan base, if you will. So yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's a little bit different perspective because with social media now, and just what it takes to open a brewery, I mean, you have to have equipment. You guys had to do the build out here. There is build up to it, and so when you're able to promote that, I think it's different from someone who just decides, okay, maybe I'm gonna start this business out of my house, and then it gets big enough where they can move into a location where it's maybe more subtle. But for you guys, kind of the good and bad there, where you've been able to, people are going to be really excited when you do open, but there's that pressure there where you want to make sure that you deliver a good product and a good experience, and that you're making it what everyone is hoping for, and so kind of the good and bad there.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like I say, we want to deliver good product, but like you just mentioned, the experience as well.
Sure.
That was one of the things when I sat down with Dustin last November, was laying out that vision that I had for the place of, kind of a brewery meets coffee house where people can come in and have that conversation and not be bombarded by screens or loud music or something like that, and kind of have a different or more of a unique brew pub experience that way. Or if they're into reading books, come in and have a place and have a beer and read while they're doing that. Or if they're a student or even a pastor, coming in to work on a study or studying biology class or marketing or whatever the case may be, and have a place to do that and have some good craft beer, but a little quieter setting to do it in.
Yeah.
So that was my vision from the get-go as well. So.
Man, that is music to my ears. I have 3 girls at home, and a place where my wife and I can just go and have a conversation where it's not like loud and all that.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
So I've talked to a lot of people that are kind of in our age group or maybe a little older that are like, we're beyond that party scene,
right?
And that loud music. Don't get me wrong, I like to play my music loud in the car and at home, but not when I'm trying to visit with my wife or my business partner or a friend from college or something. Like, I don't want that interference and stuff. So yeah, I've talked to a lot of people that are like, we're just looking for a place like that too.
Yeah.
That we don't have to compete with the music or the screens to have a conversation.
Absolutely. Very cool. Very cool. So let's talk about the pandemic. And you guys are in a different situation. So everybody that I've interviewed up to this point, they've been in business and they've had to adjust kind of how they did business, really just to survive the product that they offered or kind of how they ran their business. And I wanted to, the focus has really been on the positive. There's been so much negative, but I wanted the business owners to focus on the positive of the pandemic. So for you guys, you touched on it a little bit, but just kind of talk about how COVID-19 has affected your process as far as wanting to open. And then if there's anyone that wants to touch on, I guess if there's anything that you learned through the pandemic or something that you decided to do differently because of that, that, you know, you'll carry forward in your business and make a change because of that?
Yeah, I think, you know, in terms of the pandemic and the process of choosing location, you know, and those kinds of things, I don't know if it played a huge role into it. The biggest thing was, I guess, overall capacity and what would happen if we did have to cut, you know, capacity by 50%. Well, we have to have a certain number of clientele come in every day for our break even. And so if that number and our overall capacity, if those numbers aren't jiving, then we have to like alter the tap room in a way where we can maximize our space. And so I think that was one of the things from the get-go that we had in mind. I guess more of a contingency plan, but then also contingency plans too when like we're creating the marketing and when we're creating the plan to actually open is, okay, how are we going to set up our tables? How are we going to ensure that we are in compliance with the DHMs? And then also, you know, back in I think April or whenever everything really shut down, and if you were a bar, you had to serve food in order to be open.
Mm-hmm.
And food is not part of our business plan. We're not experts at it. You know, that's just not what we were going to do.
Sure.
And so it's like, okay, well, if we have to serve food, what can we do? And so trying to be creative with food trucks or partnering up with other companies in town, restaurants in town, seeing if we can do some kind of partnership thing. Sure. Or offer some kind of I don't know, packaged goods that we can, you know, it's food, so does that count? You know, like just really being creative to something that we didn't set sail on in terms of our overall business plan, but how do you pivot? Because in 2020 you have to pivot.
Yeah.
Otherwise you're not going to be in business for too long.
Absolutely.
Hopefully in 2021 we don't.
Sure.
So we're almost there.
Yeah.
Not as much.
But I think too, kind of on the plus side of the pandemic, surprisingly so, it was, at least here in Nebraska, breweries, pubs can serve to-go containers. And
sure.
So, you know, prior to that, I think the legislation was kind of in the works, but because of the pandemic and trying to keep the businesses open, the brew pubs and breweries were able to kind of move that along a lot quicker, and I think that's been a benefit to those businesses.
Sure.
That otherwise may have ended up like some other places around Nebraska, but around the country that just had to call it quits.
Absolutely.
It's unfortunate. So I'd say that's a positive, at least for here in Nebraska, being able to do that. Beer to go and stuff. So
yeah, like in a way, it's kind of retraining the market a little bit too in terms of it now curbside pickup. You know, it's always been a thing, but when you tie in beer and alcohol to it, it's more normalized. I guess in like our software where you buy the product, if there's a feature on there, like you come into our tap room, you can download the app, you can order a growler to go from your pickup or your car in the parking lot. And like, I don't know if a year ago that was a thing, so it's kind of retrained the market in a way too.
Was that part of you guys' when you sat down a year ago, was as far as growlers and things like that, was that part of the business plan?
The growlers were, I mean, that's, I think, kind of standard for brew pubs and breweries these days, either growlers or crowlers, but
I think we ordered more growlers than we originally planned on, that would just,
right, just in case.
just in case.
But yeah, when we first sat down, you know, there wasn't the option to do curbside pickup or even delivery for brew pubs and breweries, and so I don't know if we'll, at this point, do the delivery. I don't know that we'll have the manpower for stuff of that nature, but
All things we kicked around just in case.
right.
Yeah.
If we need to, we'll, like Dustin said, pivot and find a way to do that.
It just makes me think of Roscoe.
Oh, I know, friends, right? Yeah. I have a shirt actually that
So just because I'm curious, if you could have, when you guys first sat down and when as couples, you said, okay, we're gonna do this. It's a done deal. And I don't know when that was. If you could have opened, ideally, like, were you thinking before everyone knew about the pandemic, let's say beginning of 2020, were you hoping April, May, June to be open?
I think June was our original target date, and then it just kept getting pushed back.
Yeah, because it was, we were looking at June to begin with, when we had that first spot, what we thought was gonna be nailed down.
Mm-hmm.
But then obviously deciding not to go at that spot and then taking another month or so to find this spot, obviously pushed that date back.
Sure.
And then I don't think any of us were really aware as far as how long a build out takes. And our contractor has been great about moving things along and keeping people coming and going and lined up and scheduled out and stuff like that. And so I definitely have no qualms with that. I just, not having done anything like this before, just had nothing to reference it by.
Takes time.
Yeah, and so, it was June and then it was July and then it was, I think we had every month kind of nailed down as an opening date.
Maybe next.
I remember I think talking with you, and I was just going through, this was probably back in January when we kind of thought that we were going to go in that other direction. And I was like, putting it on my phone, I'm like, you know what? I think we can be open in May. It was like May 1st, I think. It was on a Friday. I'm like, I think we can do it. And I think you told me there's no way.
I guess in my mind, I was like,
Makes sense.
I don't see how that's even possible, but okay, sure. I guess I don't know much about it, but even just in my rational mind, I was like, I feel like there's a lot of things that need to happen, and I mean, I like the
The gusto.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
I don't think I told you, I didn't tell you that. It was just between us.
And even when,
Didn't think it was feasible, so.
yeah, well,
So the delay wasn't necessarily pandemic related, it was just normal business.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good lesson too, where May 1st is a great idea, but like you said, the build out takes longer, getting equipment, all that good stuff.
There's so many inspections and licensing and government agencies that have to have their share or say or whatever. It's just, there's a lot.
Yeah.
So, but then the pandemic has delayed some of our equipment, just because supply chains are different and stuff like that. So, I mean, I guess that is one way that COVID has impacted some of that, but I think the rest is probably just normal business stuff.
Yeah.
Not having opened a business before though.
Sure, yeah. But when you do open though, you're still gonna be dealing with a little bit of the uncertainty of, so we've got the mask mandate right now until I think end of February.
Yep.
And there's just the unknown of you're gonna be opening the business and you don't know what February will look like, or May, or even this time next year, what it's gonna look like. You still got a little bit of that uncertainty, like I said, setting up things in here as far as the restaurant. So there's still a little bit of, there's the excitement of opening, but you've got a little bit of the pandemic that you have to plan for and be prepared for. So
Yeah, for sure.
So if you could go back to December of 2019, is there any advice that you would give to yourselves, or would you just kind of let things play out as they have?
Pray harder.
Yeah.
can we skip over 2020?
No,
Just shut your eyes until it's done.
Yeah. Oh, I don't know, I think, for one, obviously patience and just, kind of keeping everything in check. Ease up on the coffee and caffeine.
Right.
To help that. But also, probably just, a friend of mine said that, whatever number you think you're gonna have in order to get this thing open, you can probably plan on doubling that. And kind of like you said, I doubt it,
Right.
No, it was 100% true. And so I think that, in terms of financial planning or something like that, not ever having done this before,
Mhm.
maybe a little bit more planning, also budgeting in terms of projections, making sure that projections are accurate. And other than that, though, that's really about it, though, is just having kind of the expectations of what is it going to take to get this thing moving.
Yeah, I would second that, and then I would just advise my former self to order equipment sooner.
Yeah, it's a good
'Cause
call.
you gotta have it, right? You gotta have it,
I
yeah.
like how you put the advise my former self.
Yeah, very well put. And like you said, Dustin, like one of those is easy to talk about, where, you know, budget-wise, it's just gonna be more than what you thought. But if you told yourself a year ago to just be patient, that's just not something that,
You're
Who's
gonna
not
hear.
good at that?
right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's hard.
not much you can do. So, the last question I wanna ask is, if someone came to you right now and said, hey, I'm thinking about starting a business, no matter what it is, what advice you would give them? Or the other thing, and this is a question I haven't asked before, but I want to ask to you guys because of where you're at with not quite open yet. What advice did you get from someone through this process that gave you the confidence that you wanted to open a business?
I think for the first question, something I would tell somebody else, it would be two things. One would be go for it, because like my wife Amy said, if you don't, you might spend the rest of your life, your years regretting or wondering what if. And so I just go for it. Secondly, make sure you have a good accountant.
Yep.
Yeah.
I've said multiple times, Dustin has saved our marriage.
I'm not the accountant though, so but I pretend to be one.
Yeah.
Somebody that knows all that regulatory stuff on the IRS side of things and taxes and fees and, you know, stuff of that nature. And just make sure that you have a good accountant that can run all those numbers for you and dot all those I's and cross those T's. That just takes, you know, if somebody can do that on their own, I mean, more power to them. But I'm so glad we hired that out.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I would piggyback off that too, really, really well. Accountants also, you know, hire a good lawyer too, to create all the paperwork, make sure that that's like set and, you know, finalized and in paper, like operating agreement. You know, that's really big because, you know, it's good to get everything documented because, you know, it's so easy to be like, oh, I'll just do this or I'll take that or whatever. I mean, when it comes to running a business too, and some hard choices are going to have to be made, and at times, like, we might prefer something and you guys might prefer another thing. Well, we kind of have to know who has the, I guess, more say.
Sure.
And having that on paper is huge, and that's okay. You know, that's okay. And then the other thing I was going to say too, which I forgot what it was, brain fog. I don't know, do you have anything to add? I'll try to think of what I was going to say.
I'm surprised that this is the first time it's happened, that you forgot.
My memory is really
I'm
bad.
proud of you, good job.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we're improving. But no, I was gonna say hiring out those kinds of things, because in terms of accounting and taxes and payroll and all that, I mean, you're looking at the people that are going to have to do those if we didn't have that help. And, you know, we have full-time jobs. Your full-time job is to make the beer. We don't have a ton of time to do the other things, so we want to make sure that it's done and it's done correctly.
Yeah.
And I remember what I was gonna say, hire a good contractor.
Yeah.
Yeah, because like it's so easy to be like, well, we have to do the plumbing or electrical, it should be done Monday, but it's not gonna be done until Thursday. Well, if that happens 4 or 5 times, then you're behind a month or two, and that's a month or two of revenue that you need. So hire a good contractor to keep on
things on time.
Yep.
And that's great advice. And it's a fine line too, because when you talk about getting an accountant or an attorney or a contractor, I I think sometimes the small business mentality is, well, I've got QuickBooks, I can do the payroll and taxes and I'll take care of that myself. Or I'll go to LegalZoom and I'll take care of the paperwork and things like that. Or maybe I can do the plumbing or the electrical or something like that on my own to save money there. And there's certain things that it's good to save money on, but there's certain things where you need to learn early that it's just better to delegate that stuff to someone who knows what they're doing. And it's worth paying the money, and you'll learn that. Sometimes you have to learn that the hard way, but sometimes it's just easier to upfront be ready to make that expense, or pay that money to someone who knows what they're doing.
Absolutely.
And if they're a part of the community, then it's just like, it's more, I guess, marketing, kind of too. It's to ensure that we get more people through.
Yeah. Ladies, same question to you two.
I would say, as the spouse, realize it's not your business. You can make your suggestions, you can say your things, you choose what hill you want to die on, because you can't have everything that you want when it's not your business. But also realize the times that it's appropriate to shut your mouth and be supportive. So like, as things were changing and as more mandates were coming out, there's definitely a time where you should not be expressing your own fear and anxiety and just being supportive. That would be my advice as a spouse.
Yeah, I mean, just in having trust in in their decisions, and not that that's something that I didn't have all along, but just to really know that I mean, you both know what you're doing. You've been brewing beer for 10 years, and so you know what you're doing with that craft. And I mean, you've been doing stuff like this for a long time, not like opening a business, but just it's just important to have that trust in them. And sometimes it's okay to just be like, okay, well, you got this, and just watch Netflix.
Yep.
It's okay. And drink Michael's beer.
Very good. Very good. So, let us know more about Upper Room.
You or me?
Go for it.
I'll do half and you lose.
That's probably where the name comes from too.
So yeah, I'll talk about what's kind of happening. So we hope to begin brewing here in a week or so, depending on, again, a couple of pieces of equipment that we're waiting on. Once that gets here, we've passed all the inspections. We have all the permits, which has been a great achievement. Just knowing what do we need to do to be in compliance. That was a huge kind of a treasure hunt. But then, so once we brew, it'll be maybe a couple weeks or so after we do our first batch or so, and we can be open. So right now, I mean, I probably shouldn't be the one saying what the date is, because it's probably over eccentric.
Not tomorrow.
It's not. Yeah, no, like here about 20 minutes. Probably right after the first of the year.
Okay.
Not sure exactly what day, but right after the first, we hope to be open, and we've talked to a couple of other businesses to help kind of be a part of it. So we really want to be a part of the community and giving back to the community. So every Wednesday in January, we have a program called Giving Back Wednesdays. And Compass is going to be the first partner within that promotion.
Awesome.
And so $1 from every beer will go back to Compass. We've talked about having a healthcare appreciation night, educator appreciation night, because we have two healthcare professionals here.
My wife's a nurse, so she'll
And
teach you.
and just what they've gone through here in this last year, it's just been, it's just been crazy. So if we could find opportunities to give back to that community, we'd be happy to do that.
Awesome.
So that's kind of what we have, and I'll let you tell more about the name and what that means.
Yeah. Well, I get asked every once in a while where the name came from, and so my background is as a hospice chaplain, and so have that religious background. And so Upper Room comes from scripture from the Bible, where in particular Jesus and his disciples had their last meal, the Last Supper, together in the upper room. And so that's basically where it comes from, and there's other instances throughout Scripture where things happen in an upper room, and so just had kind of a nice ring to it, and just kind of liked how that jived with, Jesus had wine at the Last Supper, so upper room will have beer.
Sure. Yep.
Not quite 1-to-1, but close enough.
It's kind of a place of fellowship too.
Yeah, and like I was mentioning before, the vision of community and kind of a quieter place to come ties in with that upper room. Absolutely. As well, with community and coming together and sharing time and conversation together. So yeah, that's kind of the background to that.
Yeah. And
all the beers, well, most of the beers have some sort of theological connection.
Okay.
So right now we're drinking Puritan Ipa, so.
Okay.
Puritan,
which is amazing.
Yeah, thanks. Made with Nebraska hops right here in Kearney.
Yep.
Oak Creek.
Because Puritans know how to pot.
But yeah, well, we're planning on having 8 beers on tap. We'll, depending on when the equipment comes, we'll see if we can have all 8 when we open. We'll definitely have several on tap when we open. Yeah, we'll have IPAs and stouts and porters. My palate is pretty broad, so I don't necessarily stick with one style, and I kind of try and change it out with the seasons as well, and keep things fresh that way.
And there's plan for some of the non-beer people too, so it's not gonna just be beer.
Got it. Very cool. Well, I love the backstory on the name. I love the fact that you guys are already thinking about what you can do with the community and in the community, and it's not just about opening your own business. I mean, you're already thinking about what you can do in Kearney and how you can impact people's lives, and so I commend you for that. That's awesome. Very cool.
Thanks.
Very cool. Social media, website. Sounds like I can order from my phone and you'll bring it right out to me. Kind of talk a little bit about that real quick.
Yeah, so right now we're only on Facebook, Upper Room Brewery, and right now in terms of the website, we're in the process of getting that up and going. So we're about a month out or so from that going live, and then the app. So the POS that we're using is called Arrived. It's made specifically for tap rooms, and POS is point of sales.
Yeah.
I heard a little snicker over there.
Yeah, Lindsay and I just every time.
Which is always like, you need to say what POS means. I'm like, point of sale. Like, what else can it mean? And so once you come in here, download the Arrived app, and then you can actually open up a tab right on your phone too, and order the drinks, and you can order to go, pick up. You can order your merch there too, which we plan on having, shorts and hats and whatever. McHugh's, I think, also has Arrived, and so if you're familiar with ordering drinks from there too, we're gonna have the same kind of offerings, and hopefully just be as what's the word?
Technologically.
Tech advanced. I was
Yeah.
saying techie. You want to be techie, yeah. So that's kind of the plan.
Okay. Yep. Very cool. Thank you guys so much. I think we need a cheers.
Yeah.
Cheers to the Upper Room.
Prost.
Best of luck to you guys. Thank you for taking the time. And go on the Facebook page to know more about the Upper Room, when things are going to be open, and
Thank you very much.